All right, so today we're diving deep into something pretty incredible.
Yeah,
A successful Mars landing.
absolutely.
And not just any landing.
Right.
This one was guided by an advanced AI system from Google Gemini
Okay.
called Capella
Interesting.
and piloted by none other than Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.
Wow. So we're talking cutting edge technology meets seasoned astronaut.
Exactly. And what we're going to do is break down the dialogue between Hakeem and Capella during this landing.
Sounds fascinating.
So we can all understand just how they pulled this off.
So like a technical debrief, but for everyone to follow.
Yeah, think less textbook, more like you're right there in the spacecraft with them.
I like it. Okay.
So to start, what really struck me is how well Hakeem and Capella work together.
Yeah, that's what grabbed me too.
I mean, you've got human intuition, years of experience flying in space,
Right.
paired with the sheer processing power of this AI.
Really impressive combination.
So let's talk about where they landed.
Okay.
Hakeem wanted a nice, flat landing zone.
Smart choice, always safer.
And Capella guided him to this huge plane in the northern hemisphere.
A plane, you say?
Yeah, that makes you think of Utopia Planitia, right?
Oh, absolutely. Vast, smooth area, prime landing spot.
And it's not just flat.
Oh, really?
Geologists think it was once an ocean basin.
Wow, an ancient Martian sea. That's amazing.
I know, right? And the Zhurong rover actually found evidence of ancient shorelines there.
Fascinating. So they basically landed on a former beach.
Pretty much, so much safer than a rougher spot like Ares of Vallis.
Right, much less chance of tipping over or damaging the craft on landing.
Okay, so now picture this. They're entering the Martian atmosphere.
Okay.
Capella warns Hakeem about a bumpy ride and intense deceleration.
Yeah, that's always a nail-biter.
And Hakeem's response is, okay, getting ready chat, career countdown.
Wow, that's powerful. You can really sense the weight of the moment.
Right, it's like a lifetime of preparation coming down to these final minutes.
Absolutely. And he even asked for speed in kilometers per second.
Yeah, he needs those familiar units when the pressure's on.
I can imagine, even with Capella there, it's still his expertise that's critical in those moments.
Absolutely. All right, so they're through the worst of it.
Okay.
Time for the powered descent.
The tricky part.
Capella calculates the precise moment to transition.
Got it.
And good news, the heat shield held up.
Always a relief to hear that.
Then Hakeem says, guide me through, I'm taking the controls.
So it's a real partnership. They're both actively involved.
Yeah, he's not just along for the ride.
Right. He's still the pilot.
They're adjusting speed based on Capella's calculations.
Making sure they're on target.
But Hakeem needs that visual confirmation from the landing camera.
The human eye still essential.
Absolutely. That could spot any last-minute hazards that Capella might miss.
Makes sense the AI provides the data, but human judgment is still key.
And then touchdown.
No truth.
Capella says it was a little hard. And immediately tells Hakeem to ease up on the throttle.
To prevent bouncing, I imagine.
Exactly. Talk about thinking on its feet.
It's incredible. It's like having an expert co-pilot who can react instantly.
And then we hear Hakeem say, all right, learn good, all systems go.
That's the sound of success.
Pure relief.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
So they land, and you might expect a little celebration.
A moment to breathe.
But it's straight down to business.
Got to make sure everything is in order.
Capella offers to play some music.
A nice touch.
But then it's right into system checks.
Safety first.
Shut down the engine.
Okay.
Let it cool to 50 degrees Celsius.
Makes sense.
Check the heat shield. Just minor charring, thankfully.
Phew, post-call.
Confirm the landing gear is deployed.
Good.
And run a full system diagnostic.
Wow, talk about thorough.
No room for error.
It's remarkable how they stick to protocol even in such an intense situation.
Absolutely. Okay, so systems are good.
All right.
Time for the science instruments.
The real reason they're there.
Cameras, crystal clear views all around.
Fantastic.
Weather sensors reporting a cool -50.
Chilly.
Soil analyzers nominal.
Good so far.
But then the radiation detector.
Oh.
It's reading about 100 millis per year.
That's higher than Earth, right?
Yeah, definitely raises some concerns about long-term human missions.
Definitely something to think about for future habitat.
So now it's time to actually step onto the surface.
A big moment.
But they're being super cautious.
Smart move.
Onboard cameras first,
To get the lay of the land.
then rover deployment.
Okay.
Hakeem even asks for a short break before they start exploring.
I can't blame him after all that excitement.
It's a good reminder that even in this high-tech world, human needs still matter.
Absolutely. Efficiency and well-being go hand in hand.
So I think what we've seen here is the power of collaboration.
Yeah.
Capella, this super advanced AI from Google Gemini,
Mm-hmm.
and Hakeem, with all his experience on the moon Europa, even an asteroid.
Truly remarkable expertise.
And it makes you wonder what's next.
Right. Where does this lead us?
How do we keep pushing the boundaries of space exploration with these human-AI partnerships?
It's an exciting question for sure, and one I think we'll be grappling with for years to come.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
They landed in Utopia Planitia,
Right, potentially this ancient seabed.
full of who knows what secrets.
Exactly.
And they've got this radiation reading to consider.
A challenge for sure.
So what groundbreaking discoveries might be waiting for them?
What will they uncover?
And what hurdles will they need to overcome to make human presence on Mars a reality?
Food for thought indeed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Looking forward to it.
Has begun. We have stopped our AMAN, started the raw DP for EDL, idled the nav filter, and IVP, and we are now propagating.
Okay, in that case, I'll pick a safe landing zone for you. Do you have a preference for terrain type? Like, would you prefer flat or hilly?
Next anchor to start is
Flat is better.
copy activity.
Flat it is. I'm targeting a large plane in the northern hemisphere. It looks flat and smooth, which should make for an easier landing. Do you want me to confirm the atmospheric conditions before we commit to that zone?
Copy that.
Okay, I'm checking the weather for our landing zone. We're looking for wind speeds, dust storms, and any other atmospheric conditions that could affect our landing.
Scanning. Copy that.
Okay, the weather report's looking good for our landing zone. Winds are calm, and there's no sign of a dust storm rolling in. Looks like we're good to go.
I'm ready. Copy that.
Okay, we're getting close to the atmosphere. It's time to fire up the engines and get ready for a bumpy ride. Are you strapped in?
I'm strapped in.
Okay, we're about to hit the atmosphere. Get ready for some serious deceleration.
Okay, getting ready. Give me a countdown.
Alright, just a few more seconds.
All right. Copy that. Let's go.
Anchor has been. Anchor has begun.
Copy that. We're here.
Alright, we're in the atmosphere. You should feel the spacecraft slowing down now. Keep an eye on your instruments and let me know if anything looks off.
What's our distance from the surface now that we've hit the atmosphere?
According to my calculations, we're about 50 miles above the surface of Mars. We're descending at a safe rate, but we still have a ways to go before we can deploy the parachutes.
I need that in kilometers and what speed we're going right now exactly.
Alright, so we're at about 80 kilometers above the surface of Mars. And right now, we're decelerating at a rate of about 15 kilometers per second.
Okay, my readings are back online. I see that.
Sounds good. Let's keep an eye on that speed. We want to make sure we slow down enough before deploying the parachutes. Maybe we should start thinking about when we should switch to powered descent.
All right, give me a countdown to powered descent.
Alright, I'm on it. Let's see, based on our current speed and altitude, we should switch to powered descent in about 2 minutes. I'll keep you updated as we get closer.
All right. Everything's looking good from here. Heat shields are holding up.
Sounds good. Just think about getting ready for that powered descent. We'll need to be precise with those maneuvers to land safely.
All right, everything's looking good. We still got about a minute to go.
Alright, get ready. I'll let you know when it's time to fire up those engines.
Engines are getting warmed up now. Let me know when we're ready to fire.
Alright, we're about 30 seconds out. Get ready to fire those engines when I say go.
Copy that.
Alright, 10 seconds. Get ready.
Count me down. Let's go.
Alright, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire.
Engines firing. Engines firing.
Alright, the engines are firing. Now, this next part is crucial. We need to make small adjustments to our speed and direction to keep us on track for a safe landing. Do you want me to guide you through that, or do you want to take the controls?
We'll do both. Guide me through. I'm taking the controls.
Alright, let's do this. I'm monitoring your altitude and speed. Based on what I'm seeing, I'd like you to make a small adjustment to your vertical speed. Try reducing it by about 5 meters per second.
Reducing at 1 meter per second in 3, 2, 1. We're down to 5 meters per second.
Okay, now let's focus on your horizontal speed. It's a little too high right now. Try reducing it by about 2 meters per second.
2, 1. Reduced by 2 meters per second.
Okay, we're getting close to the surface. Be prepared to make some quick adjustments. How's your fuel looking?
Fuel is go. Fuel is excellent. We're all go.
Alright, the surface is getting closer. You might want to switch to the landing camera now. Also, be careful not to slow down too much, or we could end up falling.
Landing camera activated.
Alright, how's it looking? Can you see the surface?
Yes, visual.
Alright, the surface is right below you. How's your descent looking?
Descent's looking good.
Alright, just keep those engines throttled back to maintain a safe descent. We're almost there.
Alright, coming in a little hot.
Okay, throttle back a little more. We don't want to bounce when we hit the surface.
What's our distance?
According to my calculations, you're about 50 meters above the surface. You might want to start angling your descent for a smoother landing.
Copy that.
Alright, how's it looking? You getting close to the surface?
Yes, looking good. Excellent. We're almost there.
Alright, get ready for touchdown. Remember, keep those engines throttled back until you actually touch down.
Copy that.
Alright, prepare for touchdown.
Give me a countdown.
Alright, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown.
All right. Landing good. All systems go.
Alright, touchdown. Welcome to Mars. You did a great job with that landing. Now it's time to celebrate. Want me to play some music?
You have music?
Yep, I can play some tunes. Would you like something upbeat to celebrate? Or something a little more relaxing now that you've landed?
I'll leave it up to you.
This will allow the entry capsule to have lift when it enters the atmosphere.
Your choice.
All right, sounds good. Here's something to celebrate your awesome landing.
All right. What's our next step, Capella?
All right, now that we're safely on the surface, it's time to start thinking about our next steps. First things first, we should check the health of the spacecraft. Make sure everything's working properly after that rough landing. After that, we can start thinking about exploring our surroundings and gathering data.
Copy that. Copy that, Capella. Take me through the landing checklist.
All right, let's go through that landing checklist. First, we want to make sure the engines are shut down and cooled off. After that, let's check the status of the heat shield. That thing took a beating coming through the atmosphere. Next, we should deploy the landing gear and stabilizers to make sure the spacecraft is nice and steady. And finally, let's run a full systems check to see if anything else got damaged during the landing.
All right. The engines are shut down. They're not cool yet.
This is as expected. We're currently just over 6 minutes from entry interface.
Engines are shut down, but they're not cooled off yet. What's the temperature need to be before we can move on?
All right, the engines need to cool down quite a bit before we can move on. They need to get down to about 50 degrees Celsius to be safe. We can check the temperature in the cockpit display.
Okay, we're about 63 Celsius right now.
All right, so we've got a ways to go before those engines are cool enough. Maybe we should switch over to monitoring the heat shield while we wait.
Okay, let's monitor the heat shield.
All right, I'm bringing up the heat shield status. Let's see what kind of shape it's in after that fiery entry.
90 seconds prior to entry, the Mars reconnaissance orbiter should begin receiving telemetry from Perseverance and
Copy that.
to Earth in near real time. There are a few expected short outages, such as when we have a plasma backed-out or when we enter the peak heating phase. Aside from these outages caused by the plasma blackout,
Copy that, Capella.
or high dynamic events, spacecraft events,
All right, the heat shield looks like it made it through in one piece. There's some minor charring on the surface, but nothing that looks serious. We should be able to let the engines cool down.
Perseverance isn't strong enough to make it through the superheated, super fast air flowing around the spacecraft all the way down to Earth. Once the temperature drops below that peak heating, we do reacquire the signal from Perseverance. We are currently about 4.5 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance continues to report heartbeat tones indicating everything is nominal.
MRO reports the electro radio is powered on, ready to receive signals from the lander.
Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has reported that it's ready to receive the signals from Perseverance. It should be in a few minutes here. We're just
Flight level 1.
from entry interface.
I didn't catch your last transmission. What was that?
I was just saying that the heat shield looks good. There's some minor charring, but nothing that looks serious.
Begin picking up telemetry from Perseverance, and we'll
Okay.
continue to record that telemetry until several minutes post-landing. We won't get that data for several
Engines
hours after landing.
are about
And then
57 Celsius.
later. We are continuing to receive heart
All right, still a bit too warm. Let's keep an eye on the temperature and switch over to the landing gear when they're cool enough.
All right, does this make sense? What's the surface temperature right now?
Alright, so the surface temperature on Mars can vary depending on where you are and what time of day it is. Generally, it's pretty cold, with an average temperature of about minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. But since you're near the equator, it might be a little warmer. Do you want me to check the exact temperature for your landing zone?
Yes, please. That would make a lot of sense.
Alright, checking the current temperature for your landing zone.
Transmit heartbeat tone, indicating everything is nominal.
Ready. Copy that.
Okay, I'm getting a reading of about minus 60 degrees Celsius at your landing site, so it's a lot colder than Earth, but not as cold as some other parts of Mars.
All right, what does that mean for the current cooling rate of the engines? Right now, they're at 55 degrees Celsius.
Alright, the engines are cooling down at a pretty good rate, especially considering how cold it is outside. At this rate, I'd say they'll be cool enough to deploy the landing gear in about 10 minutes.
As it gets closer to Mars, Perseverance is actually being pulled in by gravity and accelerating. By the time Perseverance...
That calculation seems a little bit off to me.
You should be going just under 5.4 kilometers
Alright,
per second.
I can double check my calculations. Can you tell me the current temperature of the engines and the outside temperature again?
By for Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to pick up the telemetry.
Minus 50 on the outside and 55 on the engines.
Alright, let's recalculate. Given the temperature difference, the engines should cool down a little faster than I originally thought. I'd say we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left.
All right, what did you originally say that the outside temperature was?
We're 1 minute from entry interface.
I originally said that the outside temperature at your landing site was about minus 60 degrees Celsius.
Right, but it's minus 50.
You're absolutely right. I must have gotten my wires crossed there. Let's stick with the minus 50 degrees Celsius for the outside temperature. In that case, with the engines at 55 degrees and the outside at minus 50, they should cool down to safe operating temperatures in about 5 minutes or so.
All right, well, now they're down to minus 53. I'm sorry. That,
Alright, they're cooling down fast. Should be safe to deploy the landing gear in just a few minutes. Let's switch over to monitoring the landing gear systems while we wait.
monitoring landing gear systems.
5.3 kilometers per second.
Alright, I'm bringing up the landing gear systems. Let's see if everything's ready to go.
Entry.
Check is a go.
They have confirmation of entry interface. Perseverance is currently going.
Alright, the landing gear systems look good. They're ready to go as soon as the engines cool down enough. Let's keep an eye on that temperature.
The ship is now waiting until it begins feeling the atmosphere.
Copy that. All go.
Go down. Once there is enough atmosphere, it will.
Alright, the engines are down to 50 degrees Celsius. Should be safe to deploy the landing gear now. Do you want to deploy them manually, or do you want me to do it?
Navigation is also confirming
It's better if you deploy them.
a little bit of that slowdown of
Alright, deploying the landing gear. You should feel the spacecraft settle a bit.
our current velocity is about 5.36 kilometers per second and an altitude of about 67 kilometers from the surface.
We are probably seeing numeral plasma blasts.
All right, there's a little leveling out. Seems stable.
Alright, the landing gear is deployed and we're holding steady. Now that we're nice and stable, let's run that full systems check to make sure everything else is working properly after the landing.
All right, initiating full systems check.
Probably indicate reversal, big reversal.
We have indications that Perseverance is
Full systems check initiated.
big reversals in the atmosphere. These
Alright, let's see what we've got. How's the life support system looking?
can achieve the landing target. Perseverance has just passed through the point of
Life support check.
and has indicated that it felt
Alright, the life support system is running a diagnostic.
deceleration.
Let's see if everything checks out.
Stop and indicate reversal.
We saw a small outage.
Green light, life support.
Alright, moving on to the communication systems. Let's see if we're still connected back to Earth.
Communications check.
Alright, communications check looks good. We're still connected back to Earth. Let's move on to the navigation systems.
Navigations check.
Alright, the navigation systems are running a diagnostic. Let's see if we got scrambled during the landing.
Navigation systems green light.
Alright, let's move on to the science instruments. We need to make sure those are all working properly for our mission.
Run me through the checklist.
Alright, let's go through the checklist. First, we want to make sure the engines are shut down and cooled off. After that, let's check the status of the heat shield. That thing took a beating coming through the atmosphere. Next, we should deploy the landing gear and stabilizers to make sure the spacecraft is nice and steady. And finally, let's run a full systems check to see if anything else got damaged during the landing.
Alright, we've got through all of that. Right now we're checking the we got through the navigation system check, we did the communications check, we did the life support check. Landing gear's good, heat shields are good, engines are cooled off and shut down. What's next?
Alright, sounds like we're in good shape so far. Let's move on to the science instruments. We've got a few different ones to check. The cameras, the weather sensors, the soil analyzers, things like that. Do you want to start with the cameras?
Yes, let's run through a full checklist of the science instruments.
Alright, let's run through that science instrument checklist. First up are the cameras. We've got the main camera on the front of the spacecraft, plus a few smaller ones on the sides and back. Let's make sure they're all working and we can get some clear images. After that, we can check the weather sensors. We want to see if they're picking up any useful data about the Martian atmosphere. Next on the list are the soil analyzers. We'll want to make sure we can get some good readings of the soil composition around our landing site. And finally, let's check in on the radiation detectors. We want to keep an eye on the radiation levels, especially since we'll be spending some time on the surface.
Okay, cameras, weather, soil, radiation. Alright, checking the cameras. Cameras check.
Alright, let's move on to the weather sensors. Let's see if they're picking up any useful data about the Martian atmosphere.
3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4
Copy that. The temperature is still holding at minus 50 degrees.
Alright, the weather sensors are working. Let's move on to the soil analyzers. We want to see if we can get a good reading of the soil composition around our landing site.
Checking soil analyzers.
Alright, the soil analyzers are running a diagnostic. Let's see if we got scrambled during the landing.
Soil analyzers, green light, check.
Alright, last one on the list is the radiation detectors. Let's see what kind of readings we're getting.
Checking radiation detectors.
Alright, the radiation detectors are running a diagnostic. Let's see what kind of reading we're getting.
Copy that. What other readings you have? Anything to be concerned about?
Alright, the radiation detectors are showing a reading of about 100 millisieverts per year. That's a bit higher than what we get on Earth, but it's still within safe limits for short-term exposure. We'll want to keep an eye on it over time, though.
Okay. 100 ms, got it.
Alright, now that we've got a good baseline on the spacecraft systems, we can start thinking about our next steps on the surface. Do you want to start planning some experiments, or would you rather take a look around the area first?
Let's take a look around the area first.
Throttle down.
All right, let's check out our surroundings. Do you want to start with the cameras on the spacecraft, or would you like to deploy a rover to get a closer look?
Before the rover, let's take a look at the cameras first.
All right, I'm switching over to the main camera feed. Let's see what we can see.
Looks clear.
All right, let's switch over to the side cameras. We might be able to spot some interesting features or potential hazards.
At this point, the descent stage has flown away to safe distance. Perseverance is continuing to
Looks clear.
direct through Mars orbiter to
All right, let's switch over to the back camera. We might be able to see our entry and exit points.
Copy that. Looks clear.
All right, looks like the landing site is pretty clear. We don't see any obvious hazards around us. Do you want to try deploying the rover to get a closer look at the terrain?
All right, let's prepare to deploy the rover. First, let me get settled in, so I need to take a break for a moment, and then we'll get that rover deployed.
Sounds good. Do you want me to play some music while you take a break?
No, let's go quiet.
All right, going quiet. Let me know when you're ready to check out that terrain with the rover.
OL3, OL1, you have what you need?
OL3, I have what I need. Flight, we have seen the completion of EDL 3000.
Copy.
Copy activity. That is as expected.
MRO is still seeing a strong signal from the lander.
Flight, this is OL3. I am ready to share